This Side of Jersey podcast, the number one podcast in the world, is brought to you by Sleeves Inc. Antoine Dickerson and his business partners provide a customized product to organizations that you cannot find anywhere else. They design athletic sleeves to accent teams' uniforms for high school, college, and professional sports. A one-of-one product that's exclusive for each particular team. They offer arm sleeves, headbands, gladiator masks, wristbands, mouthpieces, and socks. And they are still also in the process of expanding their catalog. Visit Sleeves Inc. on Instagram, that's SleeveZinc on Instagram, and DM your order to get a 3 to 5 business day shipping deal on your order. Yo. I always have the obnoxious intros. Yo. It is This Side of Jersey podcast. We are back.
Let's get into
the number one pod in the world.
Like that.
Let's get into it.
I thought you were going to say self-appointed.
They already know.
They know it. They know it.
Number one in
They
the
should.
world. Self-appointed. Let's go.
I am one of your 4 hosts. My name is Steven. I go by Ugly Steven on Instagram.
It's your boy I Robinson 03 _ all platforms.
Oh, and we have OGBs, who couldn't be with us today, but shout out to him, OG_Bs_. And we got Korean Tay _ behind the camera. Now.
Yes, sir.
Oh, man. What an episode we have today.
Very good one.
Let's go.
Man. All right, we'll get into the intro later. We're going to start with Layup Lines. So for those who do not know, Layup Lines is a segment that we like to do where we like to warm up our guests, get them, loose, get them not nervous, to say the least, right? So rules are, you have a 24-second shot clock.
Okay.
You are going to answer a bunch of this or that questions.
All within 24 seconds.
All within 24 seconds. Are you ready? Can we get 24 on the shot clock?
Shot clock ready.
Shot clock ready? Contestant, are we ready?
Are we ready?
Let's do it. Philly or your hometown, or your town you moved to?
Philly.
Fishtown or Old City?
Old City.
University City or Northern Liberties?
Ooh. U City.
James Harden or Jalen Hurts?
James Harden.
Podcasting or videography?
Videography.
Interviewing or being interviewed?
Ooh. Interviewing.
Instagram or TikTok?
IG.
Paying yourself or paying the company? There it is, and there it is.
That was a tough one.
That was a tough one. I tried to get you with a couple.
That last one was a tough one.
Yeah. We had a few too. I was going to ask. I actually like this one anyway. I want to ask this one anyway. This is a good one. First to be in the office or last to leave?
First to be in the office.
Okay.
Yeah,
All
I
right.
think I respect the concept behind last to leave, but as I've gotten more mature in my business journey, effectiveness doesn't have as much to do with time put in.
Mm-hmm.
It's about what's the value that's gonna come out.
Wow.
So it's if you're doing what you're supposed to do, you don't gotta strive to be the last in the office every night.
Got you.
know what I'm saying?
Wow. Hey man, before you even got his name, you got a gem. That's the kind of guy we dealing with here, man. Oh man, this guy. I'll read the bio first. He is a visionary entrepreneur. He is a TED speaker. He is a member of the Forbes 30 Under 30 class of 2021.
Mm-hmm.
He is the co-founder and chief creative officer of Rec Philly. In addition to running a multi-million-dollar company, he serves on the board of 3 nonprofit organizations fighting structural inequality and food insecurity in inner city neighborhoods, Ladies and gentlemen, the one, the only, Will Toms is here.
Hey, ooh.
Will Toms is here. Yeah, of course.
Okay.
Will.
What's up, bro?
Man. Thank you for being here, first and foremost, bro. First and foremost, man.
It's an honor, man. I obviously I know you know what I mean, and we go back, and for me, it's like I just respect your craft, and I know that, you know.
Thank you.
You're proud of what you do, so when you gave me an opportunity to be here, I'm like, let's do it.
Yeah, man. That's why I wanted to introduce you. Like I said, we wanted to get the proper introduction out the way, but
sure. It sounded pretty good too, I'm not gonna lie. I like that style of bio, I'm not gonna lie.
WillToms.com.
TheWillToms.com.
TheWillToms, sorry. TheWillToms.
Yes, sir.
Man, like I said, man, I, for my own introduction, man, it's just for creative people in Philadelphia, in the surrounding area, you are like a superhero, bro.
Oh, that's crazy.
You are like a superhero, bro. It's like, because every creative gets to that point where they're like, all right, how do I do this? You know what I mean? Like, how do I really do this?
Yeah.
I remember when I was introduced to rec, I was like, I almost didn't get the concept at first because there was nothing like it. You know what I'm saying? So I'm kind of like, and then in your words, you have a very interesting way of describing what Rec Philly is. What is that? Tell people your phrasing of how you describe what rec is.
Yeah, I think over the years, I've learned that the best way to describe it is rec is like a gym membership,
That's what I want.
but for creative people.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So you walk into the space that we have here at 9th and Market in Philadelphia, but instead of workout equipment and treadmills, you're gonna find recording studios, you're gonna find podcast studios like the one we're in, you're gonna find movement studios, you're gonna find co-working space, a retail store, a Live Nation stage, editing stations, essentially everything that we as creatives need to be able to create. But also, you know what I mean, fortunately we built a community of over 1,000 active members of disciplines of all types, you know what I mean? So a lot of times, as creators, when we get the ideas for whatever we're inspired to do, it's important to get connected to the tools we need and the people we need to be able to execute, or else, you know, the inspiration will dwindle and we're on to the next thing. But yeah, this is an environment that has all of the tools you need, but also access to the people, and we always program it with tons of, you know, industry experts so we can learn what we need to learn.
Indeed.
But yeah, it's just a nice little gym membership for creative.
Yeah, I love that phrasing. I love that. That describes it perfectly. Like, I feel like that's so perfect. So obviously we know of, and we'll get to know of the empire that is rec, right?
Sure.
But let's start at the beginning. For those who don't know you, right? We're a little more native to you, so we know a little more about you. But for those who do not, where does the Will Tom story begin? Where are you from? You can describe to us that demographic, like.
Sure. Yeah, man. So, you know, I started humble beginnings, man. I'm from Philly. My family's from Germantown. So like Wayne Junction, you know. To describe that, you know, it's I grew up in a home that I tell people, like, it wasn't resource heavy, but it was love heavy.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? So like, you know, I had the challenge of navigating as a young person, you know, a lot of what most people from inner cities experience, especially those of color. You know, grew up in a neighborhood, violence, you know, incarceration, you know, my pops, my uncles, you know, I grew up visiting them in prison, you know what I mean? That was just what it was. Had a mother who, you know, navigated a drug addiction for most of my life, but I had a grandmother who was like, dog.
Held it down.
Held it all the way down, you know, my biggest champion. So yeah, my early days I spent in Germantown doing that whole thing, going to church in Frankfurt and all that. But then after the death of my uncle, you know, when he was 16, I ended up moving just north of the city to the burbs. Okay. So I kind of had that upbringing of like navigating both spaces, you know what I mean? Too white for the black kids, too black for the white kids, that whole energy, you know what I'm saying? But it was definitely one of those genres where, you know, I come from a small immediate family, but a very big extended family, if you will. But yeah, I was just running around trying to figure out how the world worked around me, you know what I mean? And because of all the things I just shared that I was navigating, art, man, the art was my way of just understanding myself, understanding my family, understanding, you know, the world. So it was like, yo, how do I stay close to this forever?
Indeed.
So you mentioned how it was kind of like mingling of the black and the white and the white and the black. Talk about, you were in a gifted class, and you were kind of like the only black kid in that class. Talk about that experience and how it.
Yeah. So I got first into the gifted program in Philly while I was still in Philly schools. But it got really interesting when I moved to the burbs, because not only was I one of only, a couple dozen black students in the school,
right.
at least it felt like that, maybe there's a few more. But when it came down to like honors classes, and especially in the gifted program, I was not only the only black kid in the gifted program in my school, but actually in the entire district, right? So district is made up of what, 10 schools, 12 schools? Wow. So early in my like educational career, I knew what it felt like to be other, like, period, point blank. And like, there's the benefit of being almost like counted out, right? The expectations were low from teachers. I know what that feels like. And then all of a sudden I'm doing my thing. Like, so much so that like multiple times in my high school career, I got accused of cheating on a test just because I did too good, and the teacher was like, there's no way you did this good, and you don't show your work, right? So I knew what that felt like, and I always understood that feeling that a lot of us as black people experience. You got to do twice as well to get half as much, right?
Can I ask you a question while you're there?
Sure.
Were you aware of what was happening when that was happening? Like, were you aware, like, you clear sight, you knew, like, this, I'm the only black kid?
Yeah.
Like, you were very aware of that?
Yeah, man. Like, I was really somewhat self-aware as like a kid, just again because of the things I was navigating, because I come from one place, I'm growing up in another. Like, the awareness had to be high, because I had to understand not only how people were perceiving me, but also what I needed to do to change those perceptions, right? So I was that social butterfly chameleon. I could walk in a room and I already knew what you expected of me, so I'm gonna go ahead and open my mouth so you can hear me speak, you know what I mean? Then it'll shift that a little bit. I knew how to disarm people, make people feel comfortable, and that was survival, you know what I mean?
That's what I was gonna ask, did you learn that skill because you had to learn that skill, or were you kind of always that person? You know what I mean?
I would say this, I think I developed it through survival, but I think like it came so natural to me because also the context of who I was in my family. Right, so again, like I come from a family where my grandmother who raised me had already raised 4 sons, right? One of which was murdered at 16. The other 3 all spent at least 10 years in prison, right? Wow. So when my grandmother and I moved to the burbs, my whole mentality as a kid was like, I'm watching my grandmother go through all this. The last thing I wanted was to be the 4th one or the 5th one to put her through that.
Yeah.
You feel me? So for me, it was almost like the first learning of that was, how do I do everything I need to make sure that my grandmother is good? You know what I mean? And then that kind of spilled out to how I navigated the world a little bit too, you know what I mean? And these are things that I wasn't as conscious of that as a kid. That came through therapy and all that later where I started to unpack it. But I had that tool of being like, okay, cool. Awareness, so I could walk into this room and get what I need, and I know that's usually through helping other people get what they need.
Wow. That's such an awareness that, like, you would think people learn later in life. You know what I mean? Like, the concept of helping other people, I think, for me at least, got more purpose the older I got.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, maybe because I could do more, maybe that's why. But even just having that mentality so young is like...
Yeah, I think like, I got to see it early, too. Like, when you get a chance to eventually meet my grandmother at some point. She is that walking embodiment. Like, we grew up in a space where it was like we didn't have a lot of bread, but my grandmother was still super committed to the outreach ministry at church. I'm growing up, we're still figuring out where money's gonna come from, but we feed the homeless. Like, that's just who she was. And I noticed really quickly the status that my grandmother held amongst other people, where a lot of people just always thought highly of her and our family, even though we didn't have nothing more than what they had. But it came from the respect that was built because she was really dedicated to service.
Wow.
And I think I started to pick up on that, and I think that's what formed how I saw the world when I was growing up.
Shout out Grandma.
Yeah, G-Ma's the truth.
Grandma always, man, shout out Grandma, man. Grandma always know best, man.
She the truth,
always,
bro.
always.
So take us to the day you made the decision to build this brand, the company, for yourself. Like, paint the picture of how it started, where the inspiration came from.
Yeah, so before this business of Rec, right, I started my first company when I was 21, and that was another business I co-founded with my partner, Dave. And
shout out Dave.
Yeah, shout out Dave Silverman, that's my guy. Back then, we were really just trying to figure it out as creatives ourselves, right? So for me, I got out of school, I studied communications media, I studied economics. I had a super deep passion for just filmmaking. I was, doing producing TV shows in college. And then I got out of that. I'm in music videos, running around the city now, trying to just navigate as an up-and-coming videographer and director. At that same time, Dave is really like learning event production, and he's in his fraternity basement throwing shows. While I was still in college, I'm throwing events out there, throwing parties. That's just kind of like always been that social butterfly.
So this is from two different colleges you guys are operating.
Yeah, we didn't go to the same college. Yeah, so what's kind of dope is Dave and I like really connected in high school. Built a really strong friendship through like a class project, realizing we have like almost opposite skill sets, but like a similar passion for what we want to do, and that just worked, right? And then we got to a point in like 11th and 12th grade where we had already had conversations around like, we love how we feel when we're around creative people. We know that this is where we want to be. This is who we want to serve. We want to build something impactful for the world. We didn't know what it was going to look like, but we made that decision. So even though we went to separate colleges, we were still on Uvu back at that time. Real ones remember Uvu. We was on Uvu, like building business plans together, and we built t-shirt companies and all that type of stuff. So we were already kind of building our chops as like entrepreneurs back then. And then when I got back to Philly, we always had best friends who are musicians, artists of all kinds, and we both gravitated toward the business side. So we were trying to throw a lot of shows, mostly in the beginning because we couldn't get our homies on the Live Nation shows, So we were like, all right, well, let's just use what we have to get,
platform.
Exactly. So we were creating content for artists who were throwing shows, and at that time, I ended up getting a full-time job. Dave had a full-time job, and I loved the job that I had. I was working for a company called Fame House, which is basically a marketing agency specifically for entertainment brands. So I walked into a client roster. I'm working with Shady Records, Eminem, Ice Cube, doing marketing plans, learning what direct-to-consumer was, learning what digital strategy was. But there was time and time again where I would go in, and even though I loved my job, I didn't love how I felt there, because I felt like as much as this is cool work, I didn't feel super comfortable in the culture of the space. And I don't blame anybody there for it, because there's amazing people at Fame House. I really love everybody there. But there was a unspoken thing that I felt like I couldn't really dress the way I wanted. I couldn't really like show up as my full self. And at the same time, we're still tinkering, trying to figure out what the model of the next business would be. And for me, I got to a point where after throwing a bunch of parties, right, and then working 8 to 5, going to do Broad Street Music Group, essentially like 6 to 2 a.m. because we're throwing parties almost like every day, concerts and all that. There was a sold out show that we had thrown, and it was at Union Transfer, right? It's like a 1,000-person venue.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget, man, it was one of those moments where after the show, super successful, right? And at this point, when you're throwing parties and shows, people start to know you and things like that. So there was a big win socially. But then what people didn't know is at that time, I was living out of this warehouse in North Philly, sleeping on this couch. And it was like this tension because it was raining that night, and literally like the roof is leaking and I'm trying to sleep and it's like raining on me. And I'm like, like what am I doing? You know what I'm saying? And it made me just question why I was even in that warehouse and what I was doing there. And that's when I had the epiphany of how important space was as for myself as a creator. And that's really what was like, okay, we need to go full force on this model that turned into record.
I'm glad you stopped there actually, because I actually want to talk a lot about your three steps to freedom, or your 3 lessons on freedom.
Word.
That's why, I want to talk about that.
You said a TED Talk.
Oh, come on. We do our homework, bro. We do our homework. I also want to stop you too. You said the warehouse, because I didn't know you were living in the warehouse.
Bro, nobody knew. It was one of those things where like it was me. Obviously, Dave knew, our closest friends, and then over time, like, our earliest employees knew, right? Like, Scarlett knew, Huff knew. Members didn't know. Because at the same time, there was, like, a shame that I had around it, because it was like, like, I'm supposed to be out here helping people figure it out. They can't be knowing I sleep right around the corner there. And for me, it was a strategy point, because I was like, if I'm going to build a business, I need to lower my expenses. So the ability to, like, sleep in this place, we were paying, like, I think I was paying maybe like $200 and something a month in rent. You feel me? Because the space itself, it was like 600 square feet. I think they were charging us like $550 or something like that, and I was splitting it with a couple homies. So we was all on the couches in there.
Yeah.
So it made sense.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it was just like I didn't want to carry it that way because I just felt like I wasn't ready for the perception of that. But yeah, man, people didn't know, but I was, clean homeless in that job.
That is
getting it popping.
It's crazy that you say homeless though, because I was just when I told them that, I was like, that sounds genius.
Yeah.
I was like, that sounds like, why isn't everybody doing that?
And I only say homeless just because like we wasn't allowed to live there. Like,
Right, okay,
you know what I mean? Like it was
Like,
not
legally,
cool. Yeah, it was not cool.
Yeah.
When the landlord found out, like we had beds in there and everything.
Yeah.
Landlord found out, he was like, nah, get that out of there.
Word.
Because he was basically trying to cover his own ass because he knew the building wasn't zoned for you to live there.
Type shit.
But he also was cool enough to just turn a blind eye.
Right.
You know what I mean? So for me, we was thugging. I had my couch, you know what I mean? I had my backdrop because I was still shooting at that time, making money on the side before Rec was really turning money around. And everything we had was there. So for me, it was cool, but it wasn't cool to have to go to Planet Fitness to take the shower when like the shower in the basement of the building was messed up. You know what I mean? So it was really like, all right, we drawing, but we making it work. And I'm super grateful that we had the opportunity to do that.
But even just hearing like that y'all were doing that is like, that makes total sense.
Yeah.
Because everyone believed that you were working. Like from the outside looking in, everyone could tell that you two were working hard. Like that much was clear. You know what I mean? But like when I hear that, it's like no, like that valid. Like they really were working hard.
We were going hard, bro.
So I want to talk about that a little bit because, obviously you said rent was cheap, right? But like now you have this huge building.
Rent is no longer cheap.
Right, exactly. How much, and you have to explain, I guess, to really like hit it on the nail. But like, how much was money an obstacle when starting your business? Like,
bro,
like was it the and when I say money, I guess I more so mean like money that you're kind of like you have to put into like these expenses you have to like upkeep.
Look, I think it comes down to this. Like, yes, money is an obstacle, but back then I would say money is an obstacle just as much as I can say money is an obstacle now. Because now I just want to do bigger things that just cost more money. So for real, like, to be honest, I like to try to challenge people when they say that, like, yo, I don't have enough resources. When really I'm learning that, like, nah, you're just not being resourceful enough. Because, like, it's like this, man. Sometimes you have a vision for doing something that requires a lot. But the creativity is how do you do the smallest possible version of that still validates the bigger thing. And when you validate it, you could get money from anywhere to be able to now build, right? So here's what I mean. The first room that we ever like had in that warehouse, again, like $550 a month in rent. 3 of us were living there, so we were splitting it. Put the backdrop up, recording studio, and then nobody ever wanted to leave. And that's what birthed the idea of the membership. I was like, yo, y'all here all the time. Wow. Y'all gonna keep coming. Rent is gonna keep coming. Why don't we all just pool our money together? And instead of you buying that Scarlett Focusrite interface that everybody has and you buying the same one, everybody that I was homies with, they would put $2,000 into a very simple recording setup that we all had. But it was like, why don't we pool this money so we all could get the equipment that will take us to the next level, right? So that's how Rec started. And it really started from just reinvesting the money we're making in shows and then goodwill of folks. Like, people were like, this space is dope. I got an extra guitar in my crib I never really used. You guys want it? Dope. Wow. Right? And it just kept like the resourcefulness was just allowing us to navigate in a way that we always had what we needed. You know what I mean? But when you want to scale something, usually when you raise money, the first round they say is a family and friends round. That wasn't a thing for us. I didn't have no family or friends that I could go and be like, I need 100 bands, you got me.
Right.
I don't come from that. You know what I mean? But then the resourcefulness of getting on YouTube University, I'm gonna learn how to put this pitch deck together. I'm gonna learn how to do that storytelling. So I will say, like, money was a huge issue. Absolutely. But it wasn't a bigger issue than like my drive and determination to make this thing happen.
Wow.
You know?
I want to say before you ask your question, I just want to. Have you heard of Mr. Beast? I'm sure you have.
I've heard of him. I haven't really got to dig into his stuff, but I have heard.
I recently kind of caught one. So I teach high school, and like we talk about him a lot. So then one day I just kind of like caught a clip, and I was like watching him, and he said he met, and I forgot how the method in which how he met them, but like he met like 5 people, and he was like, for I think it was 1,000 days, he was like, we are not going to date. do drugs,
Yeah.
party,
I saw that clip.
for like 1,000 days straight. And we're gonna learn YouTube analytics. We're gonna learn what sells, what doesn't, why.
Genius.
I was like, son,
Bro.
that level of discipline, like
That's it. And like, I'm not gonna say that like I was completely celibate and I never did
Right.
or anything like that, but like from 2012 to like let's say 18, that's what Dave and I were on. You know what I mean? Like it's funny, we used to celebrate the fact that Friday nights were our favorite time to work. Because for us, it was like, that was when everyone else in the entertainment adjacent industry was out partying, doing their whole thing. Kind of like the Drake line, all of my friends out partying. Making all the music every party. Like, we were planning the next events, you know what I mean? And like, we would love to stay up till 1 and 2 a.m. working on Friday nights. And I just think that there's a certain, and then even to go further than that, we knew Saturday morning meetings was coming. Like, Rec was really built in the really early stages, a lot of volunteers, a lot of interns. And we all were giving up our Saturday mornings at 10 a.m. to come and meet and put this thing forward. And we did that every Saturday for like 5 years. And it's like, when people are like, oh, I want to do this, I want to do that, but then the effort doesn't like match up to the vision, it's like, oh, nah, bro, that's not how the recipe works. And it's like, and I was talking to Saya about this the other day. It was like, and my homie Chase yesterday, in the beginning, before you have all of the glitz and glamour accolades, effort is how you're going to be measured. When you become a veteran, though, it's not about measuring effort. It's about measuring impact and outcomes. But in the beginning, all you have is energy. Right. So it's like, you better be putting in that work, you know, and learning how to actually make sure that your effort is going to help you amount to what it is you're trying to build. Wow. But that 1,000 days thing, that makes sense to me. Like,
that's why it reminded me of that. That's why I thought of it, because I'm like, it sounds like, yo, we're gonna tap in.
Yeah.
And like,
and like, what I love about that is like, most people have never done anything for 1,000 days straight.
Exactly.
Most niggas, we being honest, ain't even brush their teeth 1,000 days straight.
Exactly. That's exactly my point.
Keep it 100% a stack.
That's why. That's why it's so astronomical. Because it's like, bro, I could say like, it's hard for me to go to the gym for 21 days, bro. I've been aiming, bro. My entire life, not entire, but like, I've been aiming my entire life to get to the gym for 21 days. Like, it builds a habit. I'm like, all right, I just need to hit 21 days. I have yet to hit.
It's hard.
21 straight days of the gym.
It's hard, bro. Now, like, for me,
and that's only for like an hour. Like, you're building a business. That's hours upon hours upon hours that leak into days, that leak into months, that leak into years. Like,
that's it. But that mastery, once you can make sure you force yourself to go to the gym, or not even force yourself, but you encourage yourself, right? And motivate yourself to go to the gym for 21 days straight. There's so much that gets to get built on top of that, because really what you're doing is just mastering yourself. It's like, because the first 5-6 days is easy, but then 7, 8, 9, and 10, where you don't really feel like it and it's cold outside, do you still go or not, right? And it's about helping yourself. Like, how do you motivate yourself emotionally that like the momentum you had on day 1, you still have at day 17 and day 18, you know? I think that's really the trick for it all.
This Side of Jersey podcast, the #1 podcast in the world, is brought to you by It's a Mighty Thing Incorporated. Have you been eager to learn how to defend yourself? Do you want to get in shape? Have you been looking to learn from the best? Or just eager to try something different? From a hometown Philadelphia kid to a rising star to now pro boxing Hall of Famer, come down to Ivan Robinson's Kingdom Boxing Gym and Fitness, located at 4434 Griscom Avenue, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and get lessons from a legend. The magic is in the work, and the work is what breeds champions and legends like your very own former IBF and USBA lightweight champion, Ivan Robinson. Different classes and options are available. To find out more, visit kingdomphilly.com or contact 215-839-1400. That's 215-839-1400. The gym is open Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., and Saturday and Sunday, 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. That's kingdomphilly.com to find out more. I've been preaching, all my close friends know I've been preaching this for like 2009. All my close friends know I've been preaching this because, again, I'm a teacher. So we just recently read The Alchemist. Have you read The Alchemist?
Bro, that's literally
Thank you.
one of my favorite books.
Bro.
Top 5 books changed my life.
So we actually, it's a funny story because we went to Paris and I knew of The Alchemist.
Amazing.
And not for my school, my friends and I went to Paris. Yeah.
That's fire.
Oh yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
So we went to Paris and I found The Alchemist on like a street fair book kind of thing. And I was like, I know this book is popular.
It found you, baby. I love that.
Yo, exactly,
It found
right?
you.
Exactly. All in theme of the book too, but anyway. So I got it. It was in French, but I was like, I'm just gonna have The Alchemist in French. Like, fuck it. You know what I mean? Like,
that's fire though.
and then now, fast forward to now, we got it in our syllabus, and now we're teaching it to the kids. So it's like we're all reading it kind of for the first time. And every single person is like I'm the teacher. I'm reading it, and I'm getting exactly what they're getting out of it, which is like, holy shit. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's like. Anyway, I read The Alchemist, and the major theme of The Alchemist is finding your personal legend, your life's purpose.
Yep.
You know that jazz. When did you make your first business decision to execute, and what was the mission statement? Like, what was the moment you knew, like, I have to do this thing, right?
Yeah.
What was the I don't know how else to say it other than mission statement, right? But like the thing you were aiming at, a very precise goal. Like, what was it?
At first, it was about dispelling the myth of the starving artist. That was like the vague, like, I don't like that the reality is when a creative person who is 17 through 23 and they tell someone that they want to be an artist, people say, oh, what's plan B, right? I was like, nah, that can't be the case. And then the second idea was all my favorite creative people, when I was building the business, throwing the shows and stuff, after they would blow people away and you'd be like, whoa, you're crazy good, they'd be like, okay, yeah, but I'm about to move to New York, I'm about to move to LA, because they felt they had no choice but to do that. And I wanted to build something that could just get rid of that. And then the mission statement ultimately started to shape up as like, hey, we want to make it simpler for creative people to get paid to do what they love to do. And now it's shifted just a little bit, but even 8 years later, it's now, Rec exists to empower creative people to do more of what they love. So, it kind of is the same, which is, I think, important. Because to me, once you build a really special and like powerful mission statement, the mission statement should not change all that much. The business model will change a ton, literally week to week, month to month. But like that core purpose of what drives you, I personally don't think should change all that much. Because that's the thing that's allowing me to find the right people to help me build the mission. That's the thing that's gonna like motivate us when like we're working those long hours. It's like, no. This is about really changing what's possible for the next generation of creators. And everything else is just a means to that end.
Indeed. And that I'm glad you kind of talked about that, because that kind of leaked into my next question, which was like, which it kind of talked about change and how much it's changed since it started, right?
Oh, yeah.
But along the way, if it changes X amount of times, right? How discouraging is that? Because I was watching, I forgot what podcast it was, and he was saying like, he named a few people like Elon Musk. He named. He might have named Zuckerberg. He might have named like those figureheads.
Yeah.
And he said like something that they all have in common is the ability to start over. Like some people get to a goal where like, okay, let's say the goal is to get to like 100%, obviously.
Yeah.
They get to 70, something goes wrong. They look down at how far they came, and they're like, I'd rather risk this next 30%, or like, you know what I mean? Like they don't have the ability to start over. He was naming like Elon Musk and these people who have the ability to like, no matter where they are in the process, if something goes wrong, they're not afraid to scrap it all and start at the beginning.
And that's a superpower.
So how discouraging, if at all, how discouraging was it when, like you said, these models change and you're like,
it's all of entrepreneurship is super emotionally taxing. And those are the moments that are the most taxing. Like, even before necessarily the model shifting, my very first challenge of like fundraising was via Kickstarter. This was before Rec, actually. Before Rec is Rec as it is, we were like, all right, we're gonna build a community-driven record label. And we're actually gonna go find the 4 artists that we think are dope, and we're gonna put all the resources behind them, and we're gonna build this pathway of all of the professional services they'll eventually need, and we're gonna build partnerships. And then once we build that, we're gonna allow any other artist to tap into this network, so they have a dependable person for publishing, a dependable person for radio, a dependable person for this, studios. So we built this whole network, right? And then we're like, all right, we're gonna go raise $50,000 so we can actually put a budget behind these artists, so we can show some success, when we do the rollouts. We invested all the money we had made to that point, which is about $12,000, to market the Kickstarter. Did 30 events in 30 days, got to the last day, and realized that we had failed the Kickstarter. And because Kickstarter is all or nothing, the $39,000 that we had raised up to that point in the Kickstarter, you got none of it. And that was one of the low points, where it was like me, Dave, and let's say 12 team members, mostly volunteers, had just put all of our energy into throwing 30 events in 30 days to build awareness. Yo, guys, this is what we're doing. And then we failed. And I'll never forget that next Saturday morning, again, every Saturday morning meeting, Dave and I had to walk into the company meeting and be like, all right, guys, either this is it, we tried, it's over, or we can pivot. And I think the ability to pivot while still making that mission true and to take those L's without losing enthusiasm is the real formula for success. Because and for real, like the only difference, but not the only, one of the key differences, and I'm gonna just take this cultural for a second, the difference between black entrepreneurs, I would say of color, but I'm just gonna say black because that's what I know. Black entrepreneurs versus non-black entrepreneurs is sometimes there's so much pressure on us to be successful that we don't have the confidence to fail in public. And that really hinders us from moving forward. Most of us have so much weight, there's so many people counting on us, there's so much social pressure, right? That if we fail, we feel like we die. So it's almost like, all right, now that I failed, I gotta go get a job now because I can't stomach that look at my employee in the face and saying, yo, we gave it our best, but we failed. You know what I mean? But on our counterpart, sometimes white entrepreneurs literally can fail their whole life and keep failing forward into better and better positions. And that's one thing that I think I've had to learn too, of like, yo, there really is no such thing as failure. It's just like, all right, y'all, we learned a ton about what does not work in marketing, right? People didn't get this. People didn't want to support this type of label. This didn't make sense, right? So then we could really sit back and say, what else is possible? And then that's when, later, had that epiphany for the space, and then things started to really click, and then started to learn that language of the gym membership for artists, and I got better at communicating, I got better at selling, I got better at building product, and all those things.
So to you, talk about a little bit what separates the haves and the have-nots. So, I mean, we talked about people staying consistent, people, being motivated by themselves. To you, like, go a little bit further about what separates the two.
So I think one is what I had just shared, right? That ability to fail and keep moving forward without losing enthusiasm. And a part of that is understanding that the failure is not your identity, right? Sometimes it's like if you lose, you're like, damn, I'm a loser. But it's like, no, you lost, right? Like Michael Jordan missed more game-winning shots than he made, right? But no one remembers the ones he missed, right? I think another thing that separates the haves and the have-nots is mindset. I think one of the biggest challenges, especially for people of color, for black people, I didn't grow up with a healthy relationship to money. Like the story I would tell myself is like, all right, I see that there's a lot of money out here in the world, especially when I'm in, a suburban school, everybody got in-ground pools and all that. My family didn't. There's a lot of money out here, but how come everybody that is closest to me don't have it, right? Like, what does that look like? Like for me, again, like, it got to the point where I'm out here in this white school doing my thing, and my grandmother wanted to invest in me to do all the things I wanted to. She was like cleaning some of my teachers' houses and stuff when I'm in high school, right? And like, I'm trying to wrestle with that. Yeah. But there's the identity sometimes that we adopt and say like, okay, well, everyone who has money got it because they corrupt, got it because they stole it, got it because they got over on somebody. And then that starts to just literally repel money from you subconsciously, So I think there's an identity of like, it's a lot of money out here, I deserve to have it. So then you start doing the things to get it, right? You start investing in yourself, you start, challenging yourself on the discipline and things like that. But I think it just really bakes down to there's a mindset, I think, that is first important for anything material to happen.
It's crazy because I feel like that's such a small, word, like, oh, your mindset. But it's like,
it's everything.
And
we could unpack that if you want, but I think it could all be just summed up in mindset.
Mindset, discipline.
Yeah. Read The Alchemist.
Yeah.
Bro, mindset is manifestation, is you can do it.
Facts.
Like, you literally can't.
Steve been preaching this book.
Bro, ask all my friends, bro. Since I read it, I've been like, bro, I gave away 2 copies already.
Yeah.
Which I don't know if I should stay on air because my school might get mad. But like, I have extra copies, and I was like, bro, I got extra copies. Y'all need to read this. And I was like, giving them out.
I think so. A couple of my favorite books, The Alchemist changed my life. Think and Grow Rich.
Oh, Bees is huge on that one. Our other co-host, you should meet him. Yeah, he's huge.
Incredible.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a book, but there's also a film called The Secret. Ooh, check out The Secret.
Okay.
You watch The Secret on YouTube. Fire.
That's tough. Okay.
But what I think is at the heart of all of those three, The Secret, that they don't really spell it out for you. Think and Grow Rich, there's a secret in it, and they tell you in the beginning of the book. Eventually, after you read it, it'll just come to you.
Mm-hmm.
They don't spell it out. In my opinion, and I might ruin this a little bit for you, that secret is self-belief. The reality is, in my opinion, God's not going to give you a vision for something that can't be done.
Mm-hmm.
But it's your self-belief that you know, like an inner knowing. Not kind of know, but like a knowing that I can. And I think that's literally the secret to the universe.
And you said no and not faith. I'm glad you said that. Like, you have to know it. Like, you can't, I believe it. Somebody asks you, you say it with a straight face, this is what's happening. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, like literally like, yo, I'm building $1 billion business.
Yeah.
I believe that.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not saying like, I think I can build $1 billion. No. It's like, I know. And I think that there's an energy around that level of self-belief that attracts other people. Just think about it like this. Like, you go in a room and you're like, hey, I kind of want to do this thing. I was wondering if you could give me $1 million because I think we might be able to do this. No, bro, I'm not giving you my bread. What? Right? And I just think that comes down to the core of most things.
Wow. You're answering so many of my questions like in stride. And it's like,
word.
Yeah, it's fire. It's so fire.
This Side of Jersey podcast, the #1 podcast in the world, is brought to you by the Puddin' Palace. Now, we have had the luxury and the honor of seeing this business grow from a small venture out of Miranda's kitchen to a full storefront located at 211 West Clinton Avenue in Oakland, New Jersey. Now, I know exactly what you're thinking, right? My mom makes pudding. I love it. My grandma makes it. Why would I ever abandon that? Listen, I'm going to tell you exactly why you would abandon that, okay? This is exactly why. This is not normal pudding, ladies and gentlemen. The flavors are unreal. They have regular banana. They have birthday cake. They have cinnamon toast crunch, Dunkaroo, Cookie Madness, strawberry lemonade. The list goes on. My personal favorite, thanks for asking, is the strawberry shortcake. It comes with the crumbs. It's the real deal, all right? It is the real deal. They have full-size pans. They have personal size servings. They have gift boxes. You cannot go wrong. All right, so make your way to the Puddin' Palace, again located at 211 West Clinton Avenue in Oakland, New Jersey. Also on the website at www.thepuddinpalace.com. It is pudding with no G at the end. So again, that's www.thepuddinpalace.com.
So the Will Toms that I know, he is huge on content creation. You are huge on content creation.
Yes, sir.
Can you talk about that topic? Talk about why it's important. Some of the misconceptions that come with content, right?
Yeah.
Like what do you mean when you say content? Just put content out, and like, what is that theory? Like, what does that? Where does that come from?
So first, you said why is it important? Right?
Yeah, why is it important?
Because I want to build a business, and businesses are built on building trust and getting other people to clearly understand what your business does and why you do it. Word of mouth was the best way to do that before. Now we spend more time in this thing than we do. I'm holding up my phone, just in case people are listening. We spend more time on our phones and on the internet than we do for real out in the world talking to people. So for me, I've realized, well, if I want to communicate with the world, I got to do that through the medium that is content, right? And content for me is not just video, but photos, videos, articles, writing, right? Just the ability to communicate what you're trying to get across in some digital medium. And I think it's just important, especially for Black people, because like the old way to build a business, especially if you're a creative, was through gatekeepers, right? And I hate that word. We use it so much. But it was through the label had to believe in you to then distribute you through the radio to get to all the people. The film office had to think you were great, take you to the big studio that they can get you in the theaters. But now we literally can build businesses by just connecting with millions of people directly. I don't have to, get permission from nobody. It's literally permissionless, So I think with people want to think about how they can be successful today, it's understand where people's attention is, which is online, and we get their attention through content.
I don't even think I've heard content creation being pushed like that until you.
Oh, thanks, man.
I feel like, when I say I mean like the emphasis on it and how you preach it to the people that are under you, like people who are like rec members, for example. Like it's like Ross. I don't know if you know Ross, Rich Fit Media. I'm not sure if you know.
I know of Ross. We haven't really had a chance to,
yeah. He's a great guy. Yeah, great guy. One day he told me he would come in my old job. He used to work at AT&T, and he would come in and he always said like, as long as you have a belief system or you believe in yourself in some way, or you have an ideology that you believe, he's like, you can monetize yourself.
Yeah.
Like anything.
That's why.
Anything.
That's why I preach that. I believe in us getting paid to be ourselves. Mm-hmm. Again, that whole feeling I felt, I had a great job, but I still didn't feel like I could be all the way me. Mm-hmm. What unlocks that is understanding how to get online and find my tribe. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And again, it's that belief system, you believe something, but also that self-belief. If you can pair those two and be comfortable enough to put the camera up and say, this is what I think, this is who I am, we're in a society right now that your earning potential is unlimited. Right. There's people, for example, when I was in high school, I had a friend who was nasty at Battlefield and Call of Duty. This boy would get in a helicopter and just get crazy. But back then I was like, bro, you're kind of drawing though, because you're wasting mad time. You're not actually doing anything meaningful for the world, right? But now there's people who make six figures playing Call of Duty. Now there's people who make six figures, not even playing, just commentating on other people playing video games. So the world has shifted in a way where it's just like, yo, if you believe anything, you're good at anything, and you know how to communicate that, you can go and find your tribe. And you only got to find 1,000 or 10,000 people, and you could literally earn a living. And it's happening every single day. It's not like you got to be super talented. No, you really just have to believe in yourself.
Fire. So is it harder to make the money in the beginning or to maintain it?
That's a fire question. I'm going to say maintain it.
Okay.
I'm going to say maintain it. But I guess I kind of, to be fair, the most important part of building a business and the hardest part is building momentum, right? Momentum is everything, and we can kind of unpack that a little bit. But the only thing harder than building momentum is growing enough to maintain the thing you've built, right? I really believe in, John C. Maxwell has this whole concept called the law of the lid. And he says, your business can never be more successful than your level of leadership, right? So when I say that, that's why maintaining something is harder, because to do the work of operating a rec space, right? When I was in the warehouse, I was in a lot of the roles doing the thing, right? But it takes a whole different skill set to step back and hire someone else to do that work. And now I'm a manager, right? That's a whole different level of discipline to be able to say, I gotta get my work done, because if I don't get my work done, not only did I not get my work done, but the person who's waiting for me can't get their work done, right? So now your personal level of discipline and motivation and effectiveness scales, for better or for worse, right? So that maintaining is hard. And then it's like, all right, cool. You did the cool thing once, twice, now you've scaled it, you hired some people. Now you have to be able to say, okay, cool. My job is actually now just to build systems. My job ain't even to be next to the actual customer anymore, right? My job is finding the right people to help me build this whole thing in Miami. So that's just to maintain the momentum, right? So I'd say you have to change so much as your thing grows. So that's why I think maintaining it is harder. That's why they'd be like, I love Jay-Z, so I'm gonna keep quoting him. He'd be like, niggas say they made hold. Okay, so make another hold.
Yeah,
right? And that's how I kind of feel, right? It's like building rec was hard and it was beautiful, but what's really gonna help us snap is me be able to do it again in a place I'm not even from. And more important than that, do that so well that it becomes a playbook that I could build 9 of them at one time.
It's like you're building the software for it too. Yeah.
There it is.
Yep. Wow.
And when should you start paying yourself within that idea of reinvesting in you?
Yeah. So this one's challenging, and it's very different for different types of businesses. I'm gonna give an oversimple answer. When the business can afford to, right? Like if you're making, let's say, $10,000 a month in your business, and you know that your expenses are $9,999 a month, you can't pay yourself. That's just what it is, you know? Because if you do, I need 3 bands to live, now you're crippling the business, and it's gonna take way longer for the business to grow. So I think you should go as far as possible without paying yourself. So then that way, once you get to do that, you're actually not hurting the business while it's going. But you don't want to not pay yourself so long that you can't commit the time. You feel me?
Yeah.
So there's like a fine balance, because like while I was building Rec in the early years, I was still shooting and directing music videos, because that's what I knew I could do. Show up, execute $500. Show up, execute $1,000. I'm good. Now I'm back to Rec stuff, right? Until I need another John, But eventually, it's going to be worth more of my time to stay focused on Rec than to get $1,000 thinking about the music video. But if you can avoid paying yourself for a while, it's helpful. But the last thing I'll just add is sometimes people go so long in not paying themselves that their business model actually isn't as good as they think it is, because basically the person doing the most work isn't even getting paid. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it's like important to kind of balance all that stuff out.
I want to talk about one of your accomplishments real quick. One of your many accomplishments. Man, when I heard this, I was like, yo, I just feel like we won. That's I feel like we won. Like we here. Like yeah, I was like we here. Like we here. Yeah. First of all, I had no idea you built Rec in 4 years.
Something like that.
Which made me happy, because that makes, now I know, like when I first was getting involved with Rec, like that was the beginning.
Yeah.
I remember y'all was throwing shows in University City at William Street Commons, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm like,
bro,
that was the beginning.
The
like,
fact that you know what William Street Commons is and you touched foot in the warehouse at some point, you were at the very, very beginning.
that is crazy. So
Yeah,
tell me,
bro.
like, yo, when you made it to the Forbes list,
Yeah.
talk about that, bro. That's
Word. Yeah,
Come on,
that
bro.
was special.
yeah,
that was
man.
super
Talk about
special.
that, man.
It was super special because, like, in the beginning of building Rec, one of the things that kept happening is I would tell people the mission and the vision. Yo, we're gonna empower creative people, like I was saying.
Mhm.
As soon as I would say that, people would be like, "Oh, you're building a 501c3 nonprofit." I was like, "No, I'm not. I'm building a for-profit
That's not what I
business,
said. Yeah.
right?" Because society was putting artists in this charity box, and it's like, but that's weird, because all the times I know that art is used, it's usually to help people make money. So why are you telling me that helping the artists who literally have the ability to make money out of their ideas out of thin air is not a profitable market?
Yeah.
Right? And I could understand it, but that was the uphill battle I was fighting, right? So for me to make it on the Forbes list, it felt validating in that sense. Obviously us actually building a business model that was churning out 7 figures was validating. But there's something about your peers, you know what I mean, being like, okay, this is special. That does feel good.
Indeed.
But then compare that with also I was 29, so it was like the last possible time that I could make it. And honestly, before Dave and I like really started building our first business, we set that intention. That was our goal. The goal was, we want to make it on the Forbes list.
Yo, shout out to y'all, man.
Thank you, bro.
That's crazy, bro.
Yeah, I think any rapper, or any musician, a lot of musicians who really take their craft seriously, some of them want to get a Grammy at some point, right?
Yeah, Fendi, yeah.
And for an entrepreneur, I felt like that was the
Grammy.
Grammy. You feel me?
Yeah. That's why when I found out, I was like, hey, we here.
We out here. For sure. Yeah, that was a blessing, man.
Yeah, man, for sure. Congrats again on that, bro.
Thank you.
Thank
you,
bro.
man.
We don't it's like your whole story, like, bro. That nobody from where we're from does that.
That's a fact.
We don't know.
Fact.
I can't touch someone who's on the Forbes. Like,
Man,
you
bro,
feel
we
me?
out here.
Like prior to you know what I'm saying? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, bro, it's crazy. Like,
That's facts.
it's crazy. Go ahead, Ali.
So just talk about what's next. I mean, we just sat here. You've accomplished a great deal. I mean, like the sky's the limit. What's next for you?
Yeah, next is a couple things. So for me personally, I'm really excited. I'm about to release my first book. which is a blessing. It comes out May 6th, Friday, May 6th, so definitely look out for that.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congrats.
Yeah, the book is called Uncommon Sense, Your Strategy Guide to Creative Freedom. So essentially what I've learned over these, 5, 6, 7 years building Rec, I got to talk to thousands of creatives at different parts of their journey, different disciplines, and I realized that the strategies to actually build that business around your art look the same for most of us. So I wanted to kind of like simplify that and say, what are the 10 ideas that creators should understand if they want to be able to build a 6-figure business around their passion?
Wow.
So I distilled that down into the book, so I'm really, really excited to share that. So that comes out May 6th. Feel free to go get that. And then from a Rec point of view, we're getting ready to open our second location.
Are you? Okay.
And
Are we? Before we go further, are we allowed to disclose?
we can talk about it.
We can talk about it. Let's talk about it a little bit.
So this year, before the end of 2022, we will be opening Rec Miami.
Wow.
Congratulations.
That is crazy.
Thank you. So I'm really proud about that, really excited. There are some other big announcements I can't share yet, but the Rec Miami one I can share. And it's dope because, like, again, for me in the beginning, I think the impact here is you see what we've built here in Philadelphia, in this region, right? And what that's done for collaboration and folks having access to resources. But the next step is I want someone like yourself, right, who's building an audience of people around the world from here. When it's time for you to go touch the people, I want you to go there knowing that there's like-minded people waiting for you, there's studios waiting for you. You know what I mean? So you don't gotta hit the road and be like, all right, I gotta sleep in the van and I gotta find a studio if I gotta get something down while I'm out. Like, that's hard. So I really want to build a network of 50 of these rec spaces around the world, and this is our first one out after the first one here in Philly.
Hey, man.
So December of this year.
We know it's coming, man. We know it's coming. Your plan of 50 is coming. We
It's
know
coming,
that.
bro.
It's coming. We know
It's
that.
coming.
We know that. Listen, before we head out though, man, I do wanna. I watched your TED Talk. I mentioned that before. I watched your TED Talk. And like I said, even just thinking that you know the Will Thomas, you know what I'm saying? Like there's so many layers. Like it's just so many layers. Like So I kind of just have some notes on some of the things that I saw that I picked up on. And I just was like, wow. Like in it, you say, quote, you say we saw ourselves in the lens of what we could be, not in the lens of what we didn't have. And shout out to Leonzo and Davis who you're talking about this, right? Compare that to the mindset in Philadelphia. Okay. Talk about the crabs in the barrel mindset. Do you actually believe it exists in Philadelphia? And I'm asking you that because I went to a Live Nation event and I was talking to some guy. You might know who I'm talking about if I describe him. He's light skinned. He's probably like 50, 60. He's light skinned. I think he's bald.
Okay.
Works in Live Nation. Or with Live Nation. I feel like he's an exec. I feel like he works for a record label, actually.
Okay. If he's like a partner of Live Nation, I'm thinking you might be talking about Ted, but I'm not sure.
I don't know. I don't know. It's probably better that I'm not giving his name because I'm I'm like butchering it anyways. So like, probably that, and I don't want to throw him under the bus. But I asked him a question.
Definitely not Ted then.
I don't think his name was Ted. I don't think it was Ted. I know it was Ted. You are good. Ted, you are good. He said, I asked him that same question because in talking to people, right, I met this dude who plays the saxophone, and I met him randomly at my AT&T job, and he was from Philly.
Dope. And
he was like at the time and he was a Bubble Rec actually. I forgot his name too.
Oh, fire.
Yeah, because we actually talked about that. He was like a member. He played the sax. I think it was a sax, or at least he's been here. He was familiar with it, like very familiar. And he was saying how he goes to other cities and plays and travels, and he said something that he didn't like about Philly was that he said, when you go to a show in like New York, you go to a show in Chicago, you go to a show in LA, he said, you might go to a show and 50% of the audience are also rappers, right? But the other 50% are just people who are just willing to consume the art and invest in it if they have it or like whatever the case. He said in Philly, you go to a show and 90% of the audience does exactly what you do to some extent.
Right.
And now it's like they're more so sizing you up
right.
than it is a community where like people are investing in, right. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, I get it.
So I guess the question is, do you believe that crabs in the barrel, that mindset exists in Philly? And if so, what cities have you seen or places have you seen that maybe model a better system for like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, so I'm gonna start by saying I love my city.
Okay, yeah, shout out Philly,
Shout out Philly.
of course.
I think the mentality that you're describing exists here, but I don't believe it's only here. Like, I don't think it's
Okay.
like exclusive to Philly.
Okay.
But I think one of the things that makes it that way in Philly is because, one, we're a super tough city. You know what I mean? A lot of folks are coming from a place of lack just because that's the cards we've been dealt. You know what I'm saying? That's just what it is. And then also, like, in Philadelphia right now, we don't have a lot of, like, cultural institutions and venues that, especially for us as Black people, feel like belong to us. So usually when those places create the open mic or an opportunity, everyone flocks because it's like, yo, like, this is the only thing, right? And that's when you get 90% of the audience just being artists, and that's when you see the Bull perform and him and the 10 people he came with leave right after his performance, which is the ugliest thing ever. And like, but that was almost the norm, you know? So I think that's what happens. But I would like to believe that there's pockets of the Philadelphia creative scene that are starting to shed that dog-eat-dog mentality, that crabs in a barrel. But it just comes from the place of lack. It's like, I think the mindset is, I walk in, right? Let's say you're my homie, you rap, I'm just the friend. I walk in and I see you do your thing. There's almost a mindset of like, someone needs to be the best tonight. And if I clap too loud for the guy before my homie, and I show too much love, and the applause is louder than for my friend, I've now done my boy a disservice. Wow. So then, that's how it plays out. So I'm standing there, I'm gonna just me mug, I might buy one drink or two, and I'm just gonna wait for you to get on stage. So you gonna get on stage, you gonna do your thing, I'm gonna go crazy, it's lit. I might even wanna be on stage with you, because this is the only moment that we've had to get acknowledgement.
Yeah.
You feel me? So I wanna share it with you, right? And then I'm gonna follow your lead. So if you get off the stage and you say we out, we're gonna be out. But we didn't really build the community. We didn't really build the scene. We didn't really create a moment for us all to be really proud of. So the next time something comes up, we now are saying, actually, we could throw this event, right? So that's kind of, I think, an issue. But it's this lack of realization that, like, yo, for real, like, opportunities are abundant out here. Because if we get together, we just make them. You know what I'm saying? There really ain't that much in our way. In reality, right? The perception, there's a lot in our way, but there's not really that much in our way. But I think that's what it comes down to, man. But I would like to believe it's changing, you know, and I would hope that, you know, we're contributing to that. I think there's other organizations that are contributing to that, but it's changing.
I think Rec definitely contributes to that. Especially being someone who was a member. Like I said, it was refreshing because it was the first time you walked in a place and it was like,
it's for us.
Yeah, like it's no like the word community like gets tossed around a lot, but it's like there's no other way to describe it other than like,
yeah.
The first time I came to Rec, I met like 4 people, and we all sat at a table like this in the warehouse.
Yeah. And
literally started talking about ideas. Like he started talking about his ideas for, I think he was doing clothes. That's how I met Matt, All Play.
Yeah.
I met him like
Fire.
the first day I walked into the warehouse.
Fire.
And now I'm doing like videos with him. Like it's just like it's crazy. Like the community is crazy. The term community I don't use lightly, right?
Yeah. But I will say this. One other thing just came to mind.
Yeah.
Like, I do want to say that. I'll put it this way. Here's one thing that actually opened my eyes when I started traveling more. The story I got from being from Philadelphia, because we're in the north, right, and we're like on the East Coast, which is like kind of branded as being very progressive. I used to think that the South was way less progressive, right? So in my mind, I'm like, all right, cool. When I start going to Georgia and Florida and these places, I'm gonna have to convince people a little bit more about the power of culture, that creatives got bread and all this. When I started going to Atlanta and Miami, I actually realized everything I thought about that idea was wrong. In Philadelphia, and I'm just being very honest, there's a lot of people in city government who care about the arts, but there's a lot more of them who don't. And they don't actually value culture. And when I go to a place like Miami, I'll be honest, I have better relationships in the Miami government already, and I've only been there like 10 times, than I have in Philadelphia. And one of the biggest differences, and I'm just being honest, is when I go to the mayor's office in Atlanta, there's Black people there. When I go into the mayor's office in Miami, there's tons of people of color there, and they have actual power. But in Philadelphia, for real, there's a lot of us that are getting into position, But in the government, there is not a lot of people of color that have real power who can say, no, it's a bad idea to remove all of the funding from the arts programs in Philadelphia, which they actually just tried to do like a year and a half ago.
Wow.
Like there's like real value for culture in other cities that unfortunately Philly has not created the infrastructure to really value. So
Wow.
that is kind of like a sad fact. But even with that, I still believe that, we can get it out the mud 'cause that's what we do.
For sure. For sure.
But at a certain point, I want it to not be so hard for the next person to do even what we did. You know what I mean?
Indeed. Last but not least, we got you for a little longer.
Yep.
Last but not least, man, you talked a theme, a very common theme, or maybe the theme with you is freedom, right? We've heard it a little bit throughout this episode already, but I want to talk before you go. I want you to talk about the 3 lessons of freedom that you talked about.
Yeah, sure.
Man, yeah. Just run through those for me if you can, man.
Sure, you might have to help me out.
I got you. So I'll read off the first one. So, the first lesson of freedom that you say is freedom requires representation.
Yes.
It's hard to be what you can't see.
100%. And that one is, I think, sometimes like the biggest challenge in the beginning. Because again, the key to success is self-belief. The easiest way to believe in yourself is by seeing someone who looks like you, comes from where you come from, do it. Because then it takes the other away, right? Because it's like, yo, there's everyone, again, from my experience, everyone who look like me, we ain't got no money. Everybody that don't look like me, they got money. It's weird. But what was powerful for me was being able to turn on the TV and see Russell Simmons and see Puff and see Master P. Because then I'm like, oh, those are dudes who look like me, I respect, they're living in a way I want to live, and they got some money. So it's possible. So now the idea of it not being possible is out the window. Now I can build my self-belief a little bit more. So I think that representation is really important. And that's one of the reasons why I create so much content. I do so many podcasts and stuff, because it's like, I want people to see me. Because I know what that's going to do to that 17-year-old who looks like me, and it's going to be like, oh, maybe the drug dealers in my neighborhood ain't the only one that's going to get the bread. Maybe, you know what I mean? Maybe the people moving like that ain't the only ones that actually get respect out in the world. So I can get it a different way. So that's the first one. I think freedom requires representation. The next one, probably ownership, right? Like, freedom requires ownership.
That's number 3. Will.
You want to go?
That's
we'll
number 3.
There? All right, we'll land there.
Number 2 is freedom requires community.
Yep.
These are your words, by the way. People
no
that
doubt.
see me correcting you, these are 100%.
No, yeah,
your words.
So for the community one, I think the fundamental shift in mindset, again, we usually come from a starting point of scarcity, yada, yada, and if I'm going to get something, it's just me out here by myself, right? Like, and we almost take pride in, like, if I was a rapper, like, there's the story of, I made a beat, I rapped on it, I shot my own music video, I distributed it myself, I did my own marketing, and you almost wear that like a badge of honor. But it's like, I respect that you got it done, because you put in a lot of effort, and that's dope. However, you gotta remember that you're gonna compete with people who literally spend their entire lives being a colorist. And right? And like, there's a person who does all their life trying to be a sound engineer.
Like, you're not going to do it to that level.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's actually this idea that, like, success is actually a team sport. It's not really about how much you can do as one person. It's how much energy you can get together going in the same direction, right? Because what happens is, as a entrepreneur, discipline is important, like we've been talking about. But no one's perfect. So on that 7th or 8th day that you're finally like, you know what, I don't feel it today. If you don't have the right people around you to be like, nah, Steve, remember, this is the goal we after, and I know you're capable, bro, you got it. You just feeling off today. But let's get through it. Completely changes your dynamic, So it's like, how do you set up the community and the environment where it's like, we're all better together? You know what I mean? And that's why Rex trademark is independent doesn't mean alone. Because it's about shifting this idea of, I'm out here by myself, to like, no, I can be independent and sovereign, but do that in community. And every time I'm winning, my community's also winning. And I can also lend from the wins of the community. And that's what, honestly, I think most other cultures have figured out. But as African Americans, it's been a little harder for us to get to that point. But I know we're gonna get there. But yeah, so that's the second one. Community. Freedom requires community. And then the final one is ownership. You know, it's like, at the end of the day, most of us as entrepreneurs, money is cool, but what we really want is we want freedom of our time. You know, and the only thing that gives you that level of financial freedom to be able to own your time is owning things. Like you don't get wealthy with a salary. Like that rarely happens. You have to have a super high salary for that to happen. Because what happens is, like, even if you don't have a salary, if you're just getting paid hourly, there's only so many hours in a day. And if your hours in a day are gonna cap how much money you can make, then you'll never get to that point. But when you own things, you can make money while you sleep. And as soon as you detach the hours in a day from your earning potential, that's when you actually start to build wealth. And if you don't own things, you don't really got no power in America, because America is based on owning things, right? It's capitalism. So you ain't got no capital, you don't really have a voice. So that's what I think it's about. You know, it's about seeing the representation so you know it's possible. It's about surrounding yourself with the right community of people so you don't think the load is only on your shoulders and your shoulders alone. And then finally, it's about putting your effort into being able to own things. And specifically, I think that's important for creatives to hear, especially young creatives of color, because usually when we think about owning things, we think about real estate, we think about owning businesses, but there's something so much smaller that you can own, which is your intellectual property, which is content. And again, it comes down to having the self-belief enough to be like, I am valued, right? And then you take out your phone and you record your message and share it, and that's gonna create value for the world. And it only can start because you have the confidence to, one, hopefully own your story and who you are, and then you create that content that now you own, and before you know it, you might be like Mr. Beast, you own 3,000 videos that you produced that now advertisers want to come and give you money to advertise against. You know, you might sell that on Netflix, right? Or just sell it directly to the people who want it, and they're gonna give you some bread.
But either way, you own it. You can distribute it. You can sell it. Like,
there it is. So that's what it comes down to, and it's like we're in a time where if we can create intellectual property, which is some of the most valuable stuff in the world, and that and data, Black people are the best at creating intellectual property. We always have been. So it's like the world is finally, getting to a place where it's favoring us out here.
Sure. Indeed. And the last thing I want to end on, a quote that I heard from you. And if I'm being, hope I'm being correct. This quote is from Dr. Pamela Jolly. I don't know who this quote is from.
Powerhouse.
Yeah. She said, and you brought this up in your TED Talk, for Black people, business is personal because we are the only people who were wealth. I'm gonna say that again because I'm gonna emphasize the phrasing of that.
Yeah.
For Black people, business is personal because we are the only people who were wealth before there was wealth.
Yep.
Our people are the only people who came to this country on a balance sheet. Yep. Explain that quote.
Yeah, happy to, man. I'm glad you dug that one up, bro.
Come on, man. We becoming correct. Come on.
Yeah, man. I'll never forget where I was when I heard her say that. I was over in University City at the Science Center. They do this entrepreneur link up every Thursday called Venture Cafe. And I went that time specifically because Arlen Hamilton was there. Arlen Hamilton is the founder of Backstage Capital. She is a Black queer woman and one of the most successful emerging venture capitalists, which is like crazy.
So shout out her.
So I knew she was going to be there. What I didn't know was she was going to be sitting on a panel with a woman named Dr. Pamela Jolly, who blew my mind with that quote. And basically the quote is getting to this point that it's like, we don't think about it this way, but like for us as African Americans, right, descendants of slaves, when our folks were brought over here, we were brought over here as property. The whole thing was, I'm gonna grab these people and now I'm gonna use these people to be free labor to build my business, right? So for me, understanding that, it's like our whole mission now as a Black people should be able to take all this value that they knew we had, right? They only brought us over here because they knew that we could add value to what they were doing and own that for ourselves. And I think that like, when you think about it that way, that shit feels personal to me, right? So when I see people, and I don't know, everyone has their own path and you can do what your gift is, whatever God has you do, and you do that. But when people don't take the opportunity that we have as being as Americans in a capitalist society to play the game enough so that way we can choose to not play it if we want, it's like, yo, you're kind of squandering an opportunity. Because I know that, like, I have a crazy opportunity that my grandmother didn't have.
Mhm.
And I know that my grandmother's grandmother was a slave. So it's like, when we go from that, like, the world is my oyster. So it's like, it's almost disrespectful for us as young black people to not try to go out here and build wealth. And I have friends even who are like, I don't need money and this and that. And like, they almost kind of take I'm not going to name the idea, but they try to say that money's not important. But it's like, you're even in a place of privilege to even say that. Because there's places in the world where if you don't have money, you don't drink clean water.
Yeah, you don't live.
You don't
Yeah,
eat.
like, yeah.
You feel me? So it's like, and most people that say that, they're on some sort of government assistance when they say that. It's like, what are you talking about?
Bro, we come from the same place. Like,
Right. Talking about, right? But yeah, I just think because of the opportunity and because of the history of how we got here and us building this country, it's like, why don't we now just channel that energy into building whatever we want to build?
Indeed. Hey, Will, man.
Gems.
Man. On behalf of the people, man, like, we just want to thank you, bro.
Yeah, for sure.
I
We-
appreciate
bro,
you.
like even just hearing you say like where you're headed
Yeah.
to somebody who's looking up at you, it's like, look what you've already done.
Thank you, man.
And to say you're heading in this direction, it's like you're truly making something that's impossible possible to people who are under you.
Thank you, brother.
And you are achieving that mission. Like, I know you said you wanted to inspire the people behind you, but like you're doing that, bro. You are doing the impossible. You
Thanks,
are.
man. That means a lot, bro.
Indeed, bro. Yeah, man. Thank you for sitting down with us, bro.
You got
It's
it,
been
man.
real,
It's
man.
a pleasure. It's a pleasure.
One time for all our hosts, man, is I'm Steven. I go by Ugly Steven on Instagram.
Your boy I Robinson 03 underscores on platform.
And we got OG_Bs_ couldn't be with us. We got Korean Tay _ behind the camera. And we have the Will Toms.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
If you like what you hearing, please tap into the journey. You can follow me on Instagram and Twitter at the Will Toms. That's THE Will TOMS. And look out for that book, May 6th. Uncommon Sense is coming. You can find that on thewilltoms.com and recordly.com as well.
Yes, sir.
Tap in.
Hey, man. Thanks for sitting down with us, Will.
You already
It's been
know.
real. It's This Side of Jersey podcast, y'all. Thanks for tuning in.